February is no doubt a very busy month on the African calendar, with the 33rd African Union Summit set to get underway this month. There are also a few elections this month in countries such as Togo and Cameroon. Well, to explore some of these issues further, I'm now joined in studio by Advocate Sipho Mantula, a researcher at the Institute for Dispute Resolution in Africa based at the University of South Africa. Advocate, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Evening, Simpiwe, even to the viewers, Jumbo Africa.
All right. Now, the AU is meeting next week and South Africa is this year leading the continental body. What can be expected?
You know, Simpiwe, what is critical is to look at the former chairmanship of the AU, which was Egypt, which was looking at the issues of refugees. South Africa will be taking this chairmanship under a serious cloud of issues around conflicts in the continent, development and trade. The issue that comes in is it is the theme that will be running, silencing of guns. That was mooted in 2013 when they came with Agenda 2063 by saying we need a peaceful Africa. South Africa, it is going there again to be looking at the Africa peer review, the mechanism that was set up in this country almost 18 years ago. Chairing that organ or that body of APRM, again, it is another serious task. And the third one being that South Africa goes there in again to deal with the current conflicts, elections that will be going on in the continent, more than 15. So that is a pressure that is facing South Africa by taking that chairmanship. But this will be for the second time, because for the first time, it was when the AU was reformed from OAU to AU in Durban in 2002.
Now, I want us to tackle the African peer review mechanism in a moment, but then the issue of silencing the guns. Why is the continent seemingly struggling to arrest this issue, and what can be done differently to fast-track the progress?
Simpiwe, if my memory serves me well on this show, I have said to you before, it is silencing the minds, silencing the arsenals, silencing of weapons and missiles and weapons in this continent. It is just a pipe dream, because only in 2020 you are talking about it, when actually it has been dating back for many centuries. The conflicts that have been waged in this continent, there was a use of small ammunition, the big ammunition, the missiles that we are seeing. But the issue of that you are raising of silencing of guns, it even goes to the plethora or the rising of military groups, what we call terrorist groups, in the continent, fighting over what? Natural resources, fighting over what? Political power. So that's where you have this challenge of that silencing of guns in the continent doesn't have to be dealt with at the defense and security level. Why don't we use cultural issues? Why don't we use even political will and even political muscle?
And the South African chapter of the African Union peer review mechanism was launched yesterday. So what does this mean for this country?
What it will mean is that we are going to be taking the governance report of 2019 on the state of governance in the continent, which is so bleak, by the way. Minister Senzo Mchunu will be the national focal point. President Ramaphosa will be the chair. What is critical is countries who are going for a review. But this APRM, Simpiwe, it is for us in this country, tells us to review our national development plan in line with our integrated development plans from local government to the province. I will always say governance doesn't start at the top. It starts at the ground level, which is at the local government. The issue around corruption in the continent, that's what the governance report it is saying. The issue around the natural resources in the continent, that Africa it is not even benefiting. It will be one of the issues. The Africa Continental Free Trade, it is coming into effect in July. That will be a key issue. But like I've said to you, the corruption that we see of your Luanda leaks, your first ladies, your families of the heads of state coming closer to the state power, to the economic power, that it is a threat. But Africa peer review against Simpiwe, in short, South Africans will be urged to participate in those public hearings, and it will be boiling because they are going to be raising issues. But what happened to the previous reports? recommendations. What do we do if we are assessing ourselves? What is the plan to rescue this country from economic challenges that we are seeing, from energy sector, from SOEs? We see a lot in this country that if we link it with the continental agenda, we must always try to resolve our national challenges.
And I suppose the APRM has a big mandate ahead of
Correct,
itself,
yeah.
especially with the recent move to take on the SDGs, especially for an institution that has literally just got on its feet.
Correctly. You talk of SDGs of United Nations, which many African countries don't follow. I will say you must follow your own national development plan, follow the Agenda 2063 plan, which goes on a 10-year plan. That is very critical, Simpiwe. South Africa revived it through Eddie Maloka. APRM was dead. Eddie Maloka revived it, and it is based in this country. So it is critical when you are raising that our role on APRM again is to link it with issues of climate change, issues of corruption, but it is that we need to put an African agenda on this Africa peer review on national challenges.
Yeah. And, the peer review process has 4 thematic areas, notably democracy and political governance, economic governance and management, corporate governance and broad-based sustainable socio-economic development. Do we have enough gravitas to tackle all these thematic areas?
Simply, it is difficult because member states, when they are going for the review, they are being asked for honest answers, for the honest audits, measurements. It is difficult. For me, it is that 18 years later, when you come up with this, or almost 15 years, APRM, when it was even started, for me, simply is that we are still missing the cultural governance aspect. Where is the cultural issues or values there? Because in all those aspects that we have raised, the issue it is that political governance, it includes even elections in the continent. Elections in the continent ends up in the courtrooms. Elections in this continent ends up in the battlefield. So we have that challenge. Corruption cases in Africa ends up in the courtrooms. And again, we have family members getting away with murder of this money laundering. So you have these challenges that the 4 thematic areas need to be transliterated into the context and the content of the people's day-to-day challenges. Because you can have these 4 thematic areas, and like I've said to you, APRM always complains that member states don't implement the recommendations. They gather dust, and there's money that has been wasted in terms of consultations. Many governments don't use them on their planning phases. When they do national development plan, provincial and local, they must use such reports. I can tell you the report of this country, it raises the issues around Afrophobia, black violence, long time ago. To say, South Africa, be aware that you are going to have Africans coming in your country. How do you manage the issues around them, around their coming in and going out? So it is critical when you look at these reports.
Now, no doubt, some of the issues that will top the agenda at next week's AU summit is the conflict in South Sudan and Libya. So what can be done to arrest those issues? Conference after conference have been held, in particular in Libya and in South Sudan, to try and arrest these issues, but nothing seems to be working.
Simply, we have our deputy president who is the mediator and envoy there in the conflict of Southern Sudan. They've left with 20 days now to come up with the government of national unity. The Libyan question, again, the African Union has come in now. They are a bit latecomers because we have the influence of the international community, which is Germany, which is France, which is Russia. You have different countries, Turkey. They are involved in that conflict of Libya. And again, it is the issue around the power that is in Tripoli, is the issues around natural resources there. But again, like you are saying, the meetings in the African Union is that you have the Peace and Security Council that meet on the sideline of the summit. And they are the people who are putting pressure on countries to reach the peace agreements. So that's why I will say to you that we need an African solution in the question of the South Sudan. But even the South Sudanese need to be serious on this peace deal that they signed in Addis Ababa in 2018.
Now, still on the Libyan issue, isn't it concerning that, international forces or external forces have a much bigger interest in Libya compared to the Africans themselves? Even the African Union hasn't been quite vocal about what's happening in Libya. And the fact that, I want to take you back to 1884, when the Berlin Conference took place with with these international players, meeting in a quest to control Africa. It was also called the Partition for Africa.
Correct,
and it was held in Berlin. And just last month, another conference also held in Berlin about the fate of an African country. Isn't that concerning, though?
No, it is, but you must understand that when Africans are sleeping and they are slumbering, the Europeans will come in and give us directives because they are putting money, they are putting funds on this peace talks, they are putting money on consultancy, they are putting money on the peacekeeping missions. African leaders, they are always going to Europe, to the summits, just to become the only spectators on the game that is being played in their face. And that's where they are selling us out, most of them. African leaders, they are missing even to understand the conflict resolution. We have a person from South Africa who's leading the peace operations at the AU, but we hardly get the information about what is then the role of the peacekeeping missions in the continent broadly, from North Africa to Central Africa to East Africa, because in the Southern we don't have many conflicts. But look at the conflicts that you have mapped now. Why is there international interest? Because there's natural resources. And at the same time, they are the former colonizers. They are the former colonial masters. They still want to control, as Mr. Brown, having their remote. So that's why we are having this challenge of international forces. But African leaders, it says there's a deficit of knowledge, there's a deficit of mediation skills.
But why, though? Why are we subjecting ourselves to these international powers, these international players? I mean, there's a conference on just about anything, whatever conference on Africa, and we seem to be subjecting ourselves to these people in return for aid.
That is quite true what you are raising, but in some instances, we don't invite them, they invite themselves. They know how to gate crash, they know how to bypass protocol. And in some instances, we even go for them. The conflict of Egypt, Sudan, and Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia on the water crisis, it was solved in Washington. Another facade that we have never saw of seeing the Europeans trying to meddle in African issues. But like I've said to you, it's when African leaders and mediators are slumbering and are in a deep sleep.
Okay. Now, peaceful transfer of power during elections is another problem that most African countries are still grappling with. For instance, Malawi elections happened last year in May, and yet the Constitutional Court still has to make a ruling.
Tomorrow, by the way.
Tomorrow, is
tomorrow,
it? Yeah, and this comes, of course, just days after the Botswana opposition lost a similar bid. I mean, I've raised this issue with you several times about the opposition crying foul over the election outcome, and the result is always the same.
That is quite true, but Malawi, let me tell you what is the current latest. There is a state of emergency in the sense that around the court tomorrow, at the High Court, there will be no movement of people going in. Tomorrow's judgment actually will be questioning legitimacy of the Malawian Electoral Commission. Remember the issue of the T-PAX that was used in the electoral ballot papers. It was questioned. Now, if they can nullify those ones, they will take us back to 2017, the one of Kenya. Uhuru Kenyatta was angry with Justice Maraga as the Chief Justice because he nullified those elections. Now, what will be the scenario? Malawi will be forced to go to the elections in 60 days. The current vice president will lose his pension. Mutharika will still be the president. Chilima, as the opposition, will go back to his position as a vice president for only 60 days to can enjoy that salary. But they must go for the elections. But if they don't nullify them, then as you have said, it is the same script. It goes back that the 74-year-old Peter Mutharika becomes the president once more. So that is the challenge of the continent. To look at Togo. Elections of Togo, they are coming 20 days from now. This week, on Wednesday, they will have to come up with their campaign. The president of Togo is going for the fourth term. He has been the president since 2005. His father was a president for 37 years, Ayadema Kansibe. He has been there for 37 years. Now, this young leader has been there for almost 15 years. The people of Togo are saying, but what are we going to vote for when we know already what will be the outcome? There were 9 candidates. They've all pulled out. There are only 2 left that will be going for presidential contestation with the current president of Togo.
But then why are the civilians always crying foul as to what are they going to vote for? Yet the power, the real power rests with them.
With the vote,
they have the power, to call for a 2-term election or a 2-term presidency, for instance, in a constitution.
Simpiwe, the mantra of African leaders, despot rulers, is that they have changed constitutions. They know how to even increase their age, even to stand for the elections. They know, and I did say to you that there's this what we call politics of cheating on elections. They know how to massage elections even before monitors, observers, they can come. So you will have that challenge of that electorates are left without any means to say how we're going to deal with this electoral mafias that are stealing elections. And the other issue is the liberation movements. They have this say that we have liberated you, must always vote for us. So elections in the continent is not a panacea to change development. Once we don't have a multi-party democracy, we'll have a challenge. Cameroon parliamentary elections are coming in a week's time. In the northwestern part of Cameroon, there is a challenge. The people in that area, the English-speaking, don't want to go to those elections. The president you have served for 38 years, Paul Biya, said that there will be elections there. Yeah. But he's insisting that the military and the police must take action against the media and anyone else there who wants to fight against those elections, which is going for 180 seats in the parliament. And those elections were even delayed for almost 2 years. Parliamentary elections in Yaoundé, Cameroon, were delayed for 2 years. It shows again how African leaders, they know how to manipulate the parliamentary processes, which are mostly a Westminster system. Our parliaments in Africa are still having a colonial infrastructure and a colonial mentality.
Let's now move on to Zimbabwe. Now, we saw that country's opposition leader, Nelson Chamisa, visiting South Africa, and he also called on South Africa to intervene in Zimbabwe. Why would South Africa listen to an opposition leader when South Africa's position on Zimbabwe has been clear or unclear, depending on how you look at it?
I think Chamisa, he just forgot to read his notes. Just last month, Thabo Mbeki was there. Now, coming to South Africa, we will be working through the SADC. Zimbabwe is the chair of the organ. Tanzania is the one leading, and it will be handing over this year to Mozambique. I would have said Chamisa should have looked his way towards Mozambique, not to us, because what he has to do is that he must accept the issue of the national dialogue. But the pressures that are in his country of economy are the ones that are pushing them against Mnangagwa. And you'll understand that Mnangagwa is trying by all means to fight corruption within his party, within government. But the key challenge of Nelson Chamisa as a young leader, for me, like I said to you, he has lost faith on SADC. He might have to go to the AU. But I will always say, look at the ordinary people of Zimbabwe. Look at your own constituency to can mobilize them to change the country's economic challenges, because Zimbabwe is going through economic and political sabotage by the West.
That's what it's been doing all these years, and the MDC has failed.
MDC, remember, it was even at some point into 2 splits. There was 2 MDC. He was even his challenge as the leader by then, that he was just handpicked by Changarai. So there are many challenges that if you look at MDC politics, is that they need to build Zimbabwe first, and they will come to the SADC to ask for solidarity and assistance, because even the SADC is having many challenges.
So who can help Zimbabwe? Who can bail Zimbabwe out of the quagmire that it finds itself in? Because South Africa clearly, Chamisa was not so successful, and SADC isn't helping, and the AU.
Simpiwe was very impressed of a millionaire, a multi-billionaire of Zimbabwe, who said, I will pay the doctors. Imagine an individual. So it takes the business community of Zimbabwe, who are all over the world making money, to can contribute back to Zimbabwe. And those who were in the government of Zimbabwe during the era of the old men, who have stolen money, they have to return the money. Another problem that Mnangagwa fought when he was inaugurated, he raised the issue of people who stole money during the era of Robert Gabriel Mugabe. They must bring the money back. so that they can build that country. The issue of sanctions, we need to put pressure on the issue of sanctions. We need to give the mediation of President Thabo Mbeki a chance as well, even if people have lost faith on his mediation role. But President Thabo Mbeki, when he was there, he met with everybody when he was in Zimbabwe. So we need to give him that space, because he did say that he went there to assist the people of Zimbabwe.
Now, just before I let you go, we don't have much time, unfortunately, Advocate. Now, the month of February is considered a Black History Month in the United States, and quite a very important month for South Africa as well, with the unbanning of political parties this day in 1990.
That is quite true, but I will take you back to say yesterday was again a day where Nkgopotse Abraham Tiro was killed in Botswana in 1974, and there is a book about him as well, Parcel of Death. You have the release of political prisoners during this month. You have the passing of Robert Sobukwe during this month. But what is important is the state of the nation as well. What will be the state of the nation of the president?
Yes.
What is the budget will be saying about Africa? What will be the state of Africa that will be raised by the president during this month? So the Black History Month is very important. In the reggae community, by the way, Bob Marley will be born, if he was alive, he will be 75 on Wednesday. He will have 1075.
Oh, really?
So Black History Month, it links with International Reggae Month in the diaspora. So that's how it is so important when we think of Black history, and as well as the study of history by our learners at school, Simpio, because we can't just talk about Black History Month, because it is important for the young people to study history on a daily basis, to know their story, to know their narratives, but always to know that history is linked to geography as well, it's linked to economy. It's not the thing of the past, of dates only, but it is not biography and geography only, but it is telling us where we come from, where we are going.
Sure. Advocate Mantula, thank you so much for your analysis and for your insights. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much, my friend.